Facilities with Chair Daphne Kendall.
Hi, facilities met yesterday here in Valley Road at 7:15. We heard a presentation from the Bill Committee from Riverside, and they're seeking to add, they made a presentation, they're seeking to add Bill Cirillo's name to the building or Riverside School's name. The presentation lasted about 45 minutes. We will continue to discuss this with the committee. The board members present at the meeting all agreed that we would like to honor Bill Cirillo's memory. Bill Cirillo, for those of you who didn't know, he was employed by the district for 30 years, and he also grew up in Princeton. And he passed away too early last year. So the committee, this Bill Committee that is a combination of teachers, parents, and retired staff, are meeting to discuss ways to honor Bill's legacy, and we will continue that discussion. We next spoke about referendum planning. We were waiting on the demographer's report, which Steve mentioned we just received. We are also waiting to hear the outcome of Westminster Choir College and its fate. The demographer, as Steve said, will be at the March 28th board meeting to present his findings. In the meantime, we have referendum planning by our architects that the board had previously approved. They're looking at capacity, mechanical issues, and also hopes and wishes. Well, that's Stephanie, really.
Not her hopes and wishes.
No, but you're gathering the hopes and wishes, which did include an ice skating rink. It did. So briefly, yeah. Well, it's a hope, right? A wish. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for to hear about the charter school application and also the status of the Westminster Choir College, we are working on a Plan B. The pre-K is moving or has moved? Will it be moving?
From CP you're talking
Yes,
about?
yeah.
The preschool, yes, we're looking to move
Sorry.
that to Riverside to free up a classroom
Yes.
at CP.
So, because it was determined that in the fall, there will be higher enrollment because of Avalon Bay at CP. So, proactively, there's a plan to move pre-K classroom to Riverside to open up a classroom. And there's also a plan to put Spanish on a cart to open up that classroom as well. So the demographer's final report is due in March, and we should have more information in March on how we will place students in September. We also discussed briefly the pool resurfacing at JW. We're looking into, as a result of the principal's concerns at JW, we're looking into some traffic calming issues on Guyot, as well as a speed bump in the parking lot to slow people down. The next facilities meeting is on Monday, March 27th at 7:15 p.m. And just so the public knows, we moved this meeting to the evening, the facilities committee meetings, to the evening to allow the public to hear about our plan for addressing rising enrollment and plans for our buildings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daphne. Finance, Justin Duran.
Sure. Thanks, Pat. The Finance Committee met at 6 p.m. on February 27th at the Valley Road School. Pat Sullivan, Connie Witter, Bill Hare, Greg Stankiewicz, myself were in attendance, along with Steve Cochran and Stephanie Kennedy. We reviewed February bills, financial reports, and discussed items for the 2017-2018 budget. We also discussed the health benefit waiver, the balance of the deferred enrollment waiver, and the enrollment waiver. On March 7th, we will host a board budget workshop, which will be held at Valley Road, beginning at 7 p.m. and is open to the public. And then on Thursday, March 16th, we will hold a board meeting on the tentative budget at Valley Road, beginning at 6:30 p.m. The public is welcome and action may be taken. The next Finance Committee meeting will be held on March 27th at 6 p.m. here at Valley Road.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, personnel, Connie Witter.
Good evening. Personnel Committee met February 21st from 8:45 to 11:45 a.m. Minutes. The committee reviewed the minutes of January 23rd. Residency case. The committee heard an appeal of initial determination in a residency case in which the student was deemed not to have been properly domiciled in the district. Communications plans. Brenda Sewell. Ms. Sewell highlighted the goals of building bridges internally and externally. This included soup with the superintendent and breakfast with the board. Ms. Sewell also discussed new initiatives, including developing outreach to PHS, alumni, and forming a communications committee. District searches update. Assistant principal has been narrowed down to 3 finalists from 75 applicants.
Assistant superintendent for
I'm sorry.
curriculum. That's, we have a lot of positions we're hiring for, Connie, that's okay.
2 other searches are also currently in progress. Semifinalists for 85 applicants for athletic director and 175 applicants for high school assistant principal. CJ Pride Job Fair. The district will be hosting the Central Jersey program for the recruitment of diverse educators, or CJ Pride Job Fair, on Thursday, March 16th from 7 to 6:30 p.m. at John Witherspoon School. The Pride Consortium has grown from 5 school districts to currently 17 school districts covering Mercer, Middlesex, Somerset, and Ocean counties. The last job fair attracted over 500 applicants, and a larger turnout is expected this year. February leaves of absence. The committee reviewed the list of February leaves of absence. Related matters. All school districts in New Jersey. The court's decision now requires Rice notices to be given to all staff appearing on the personnel agenda. The Personnel Committee also discussed financial matters relating to the district. Next meeting, March 20th, 8:45, Valley Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Okay, policy, Betsy, who's giving, is it Betsy Baglio or Daphne Kendall?
We're alternating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the policy committee met on February 13th here at Valley Road at 1 o'clock. It was a very productive meeting. We have 5 policies on the agenda tonight for first reading. Policy 1510, American with Disabilities Act. Policy 2415.30, Title I, Educational Stability for Children in Foster Care. Policy 2418, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. 5116, Education of Homeless Children, and Policy 8544, Outstanding Food Service Charges. Some of those are revisions to revisions to new policies that require a first reading. We also discussed policy number 5330.04, administering an opioid antidote policy. This is a new policy, and we discussed it with Mickey Crucifelli. Given the opioid addiction epidemic that's taking place in New Jersey, though not necessarily in Princeton, the committee requested that the district explore what is required for the district to have this antidote available. Mickey advised she will explore grant funding that may be available, including funding for training for nurses and for the cost of the opioid antidote itself. The committee will review this policy again shortly. We also discussed policy 5516, use of electronic communication recording devices. Ms. Crucifelli updated the committee on the progress of the regulations for this policy, which was revised by the board on December 13th, 2016. She's working on implementing procedures in place for widespread use of electronic recording devices by students who have an educational need. But for now, these devices may be used, subject to case manager approval, by students on an as-needed individual basis. Mrs. Crucifelli is looking to other districts for information on how student privacy and appropriate use is handled. Ms. Christofelli will meet with the policy committee again when more information is known about its implementation in other districts. We also discussed policy 5200, attendance, and we're reviewing our current policy to ensure we're in compliance with NJDOE requirements. We discussed monitoring attendance at every level and contacting parents when a child has been absent for an extended period of time. And we will be reaching out to the New Jersey School Boards Association for guidance, and Mr. Cochran will reach out to other towns for information about their attendance policies. We also, on the agenda for second reading tonight is bylaw 0152, board officers. New business, we discussed, the policy committee discussed ways to support our undocumented students. The committee also discussed the issue of underage drinking and substance abuse, specifically how it relates to student athletes. We've been advised that student athletes sign a code of conduct or a pledge agreeing to refrain from drug and alcohol use as a condition of playing a sport. However, several board members have been advised by parents that this practice is not consistently enforced. The committee asked the superintendent to discuss this issue and the concerns of the committee with the Princeton High School coaches and athletic director before the spring sports season begins. The policy committee will discuss this topic in more detail at our March meeting. We had no public comment, and the meeting adjourned at 2:46. Our next meeting, which is open to the public, most of it, will be on Monday, March 13th at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Can I add one thing to that? Or is that
Please.
proper form? So,
Sure.
Daphne and I have been approached by parents about the drinking and, saying, yep, my child was at a party and police showed up, alcohol. Oh, microphone. And she just thought that there were a lot of athletes there, and, Superintendent Cochran can only do so much and get the coaches to do so much. If a parent has a house and there's a party going on and the parents aren't there, it seems like the parents need to be a bit more responsible. I don't mean to be preachy or anything, but if you're not at home, you got to know what's going on in your house. So it shouldn't be the place that all the kids go to have the parties because the parents are gone for the weekend. So it's the superintendent and the school can only do so much. And I guess that picture of the brain on there that we were looking at earlier, and these teens, 16, 17-year-olds and their brain development and lots of alcohol and who knows what else, it just doesn't seem to add up to a good outcome. So, and then one other thing about that meeting that we had that really struck me was the policy on the homeless kids, and we were talking about the undocumented families, and that probably was a huge emotional impact to me because kids could come home from school and find their parents grabbed by ICE. And I think Superintendent Cochran mentioned that there's forms that can be filled out for custody, so the kids could stay in the schools. And I believe I found them on the town webpage. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's stunning that kids that sit next to my kids could go home in Princeton and find their parents gone. So that was very stunning to me to hear something like that. So one last point, these policy meetings are really fascinating. When I got put on it, I was thinking, is Pat punishing me or what? And but it's
yes,
really
yes.
interesting. So, I think they're worth going to if you get the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, and just one other point on policy. Drugs and alcohol have come up a lot in Daphne's report, and I think we've talked, some of us, about taking some time, just like this discussion, on executive function to one meeting soon to have an overview discussion of drug and alcohol abuse, especially given the terrible opioid addiction epidemic that's happening in this country. It doesn't seem to have hit Princeton, but it's interesting, Bill, that you mentioned the alcohol abuse. I have two stories from Andover, Massachusetts. One, there's a really fascinating documentary on YouTube about very high-performing kids just like ours who are really being devastated and killed by opioid addiction in Andover, Massachusetts now. And it was done by a student, very powerful documentary. and we're fortunate that it hasn't come here, but I'm afraid that we should be educated as parents about that. And number two, in Andover, Massachusetts, not too long ago, a child was at a party sponsored by parents, and the child fell down the stairs and died. Parents went to jail. So there's a real risk to opening your house to a party for children where alcohol is being served. But again, having the awareness in our community is really important. So at one point, I think it would be important to address that in our little 20-minute window if we can. Last, student achievement with Betsy Baglio.
So the last meeting, I said we hadn't met since the former board meeting, the prior board meeting. We met 3 times since our last board meeting. So I'm going to give you some highlights. Luckily, we did cover a few of the topics more than once. We met January 27th, February 10th, and February 24th here in this room. The student achievement meetings are public meetings, the entirety of the meeting. So we really do encourage the public to come. We discussed some overnight trips that are on our agenda. We also discussed modifications to the way we approve overnight trips, looking in the future at a template submitted by the curriculum office with the information that is needed and having a discussion that way. Mark Shelley, the supervisor of humanities, came to present a revised curriculum for English 4 and AP English 4. We heard about the dual enrollment program with Mercer County College. Ms. CISO Stentz and Mr. Snyder talked about implementing this in September of 2017. We talked in great detail at a few meetings about financial aid for students who need aid for AP testing and how that is communicated clearly and often to students who, as they register for APs, know that that aid is there for them, and we're looking forward to just improving this every single opportunity we get. We had a terrific presentation by the Advanced Topics Advanced Placement Committee from the high school, which was a multidisciplinary committee who came to talk with us about their collaborative work looking at this question of advanced topics versus advanced placement or some combination there. Brian Dubinsky came twice and talked about the impact test that we currently use for our students. There are new recommendations that say that this test is not valid for children 11 years old and younger. So that affects how we test students at the middle school level. This will also come to our policy meeting next month as well. So we're looking at our policy as well as speaking with our school physicians about the right course of action and how to communicate these changes to parents. He also spoke about a request for the board to sponsor student divers, and we have requested an update at a later meeting. Jennifer Walters and Jason Burr from the middle school came to discuss a new 6th grade campfire program, which is a new leadership opportunity for 6th graders. It's a new EP there. We heard about a few research study proposals in January, and also Jeanette Paredes from JW came back to us in February, actually last week, to give us some update on her work that she had done on teacher engagement at the middle school. We looked at the district calendars multiple times. The school calendar for this coming year is in our agenda to be voted on for the board. We are still looking at 2018-19, but hope to vote on that soon as well. Now I'm going to the next set of minutes from the most recent meeting that we had. Eddie Cohen came to our last meeting to talk about new science materials that will be piloted by elementary teachers. He will then come back to share teachers' feedback before we actually make a decision about purchasing them. Art teacher Ashley Kennedy from Riverside came. She has been given $10,000 by the PTO at Riverside, a very generous gift, to create a digital art, to share a new digital art initiative. So there will be iPads and a new printer and other equipment purchased for this. This new medium will be accessible to Riverside students, but she's also very eager to share what she learns with her art colleagues across the district, and that's very exciting as well. They plan to debut this digital art at the art show at Riverside this year. We did discuss preliminary demographic data, which has been discussed a few times, and also a tiny bit of the preliminary results of the survey. So I learned a little bit more from our students here. We are looking forward to a presentation on that in March. So we changed the time of student achievement to actually have more time, and we've also added a meeting. So we will meet on March 8th and March 24th here in this room. Please check the website for the exact times, but the March 24th meeting will be at 11, and I believe March 8th at 10. The public, we really do encourage you to come if you're able. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing, Betsy? As a new board member, I was impressed with the amount of effort that goes into the calendar. It's not just tossed down the stairs and then the dates line up. The amount of discussion about the well-being of the students, when to put things, I was mightily, as someone new, I was mightily impressed at the effort that went into it. So I want to give my appreciation for that.
Okay, thanks.